On February 1st, 2025, President Donald Trump made a move that has already sent shockwaves through global markets.
I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada and separately 25% on Mexico. And we will really have to do that because we have very big deficits with those countries. Those tariffs may or may not rise with time.
He announced new tariffs, a 25% tax on imports from Canada and Mexico, and a 10% tax on goods from China. For many, this announcement felt like déjà vu, a throwback to Trump's first term, when his tariff war with China sent markets into a frenzy. But this time, the stakes are even higher. Because this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was part of Trump's plan from the very beginning. Back in November 2024, during his campaign for re-election, Trump repeatedly warned that he would impose aggressive tariffs if he returned to office. He framed it as a move to protect American jobs, boost domestic industries, and reduce the trade deficit. And now, he's following through on that promise. In fact, while Trump ran for president on a platform of lowering taxes, most Americans would see a net tax increase from his agenda so far. So, how will these tariffs impact the economies of Canada, Mexico, and China? And most importantly, what does this mean for the United States? Well, to understand what's happening, we first need to answer a simple question. What exactly is a tariff? A tariff is a government-imposed tax on imported goods, a cost that businesses have to pay when bringing products into a country. Think of it as a toll booth at the border. Every time a product crosses into the US, the importing company pays a fee. These fees are designed to make foreign goods more expensive, encouraging consumers to buy cheaper domestic alternatives. Trump sees tariffs as a weapon, a tool to boost the US economy, protect jobs, and raise tax revenue. But history tells us a different story. While economists warn that trade wars hurt everyone, businesses, consumers, and entire industries. And if there's one country that could feel the impact of these tariffs the hardest, it's Canada. Here's why. A staggering 75% of all Canadian exports go to the United States. That means Canada's economy is heavily dependent on trade with its southern neighbor. And with the country already struggling economically, this couldn't have come at a worse time. The most vulnerable industries include automobiles. Canadian-made car parts cross the US border multiple times before a vehicle is even assembled. A 25% tariff could cripple the industry, raising prices on both sides of the border. Oil and gas. The US imports billions of dollars in Canadian crude oil and natural gas. A tariff could disrupt this flow, leading to higher energy prices in the US. In fact, Alberta's oil and British Columbia's lumber, key exports to the US, could lose competitiveness overnight. Lumber and steel, construction materials from Canada, could see price hikes, directly impacting home prices and infrastructure costs in America. After emergency talks, Trump agreed to delay tariffs for 30 days, but only after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pledged to deploy troops to secure the US-Canada border against drug trafficking and migration. Now, critics call this a trade ransom, arguing Canada sacrificed sovereignty to avoid economic ruin. But that's just a temporary fix. But if these tariffs fully take effect, Canada could face a severe economic downturn. Now, let's talk about Mexico, another country that relies heavily on trade with the US. A staggering 80% of all Mexican exports go directly to the United States. And these exports make up 36% of Mexico's total GDP. That means Trump's 25% tariff isn't just an inconvenience, it's an economic nightmare for Mexico. And what sectors will be hit the hardest? Agriculture and food exports. The US imports Mexican produce, including avocados, tomatoes, and tequila. Expect higher grocery prices in American supermarkets. Auto manufacturing. Just like Canada, Mexico's auto industry is deeply integrated with the US supply chain. Car prices in the US could spike as a result. Electronics and machinery. Mexican factories supply countless components to American manufacturers. Tariffs could disrupt production lines in both countries. Now, to ease tensions, Mexico's newly elected president, Claudia Sheinbaum, has agreed to reinforce border security. But in the long run, these tariffs could derail Mexico's economy, push businesses to relocate, and increase inflation in both nations. Also, Mexico isn't backing down quietly. Retaliatory tariffs on US pork and dairy are already in the works. Then there's China, America's biggest economic rival. Trump's new 10% tariff on Chinese imports officially took effect on February 4, 2025. Within hours of Trump's announcement, China's Commerce Minister declared Beijing would challenge the tariffs at the World Trade Organization, calling them illegal and destructive. Also, China retaliated with its own set of tariffs: 15% tax on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas, 10% tax on crude oil and agricultural machinery. Sound familiar? That's because this isn't the first time the US and China have gone head-to-head in a trade war. Between 2017 and 2021, Trump imposed massive tariffs on Chinese goods, forcing American businesses to either absorb the costs or pass them on to consumers. And the vulnerable sectors? Well, electronics and machinery. The US imports billions of dollars worth of Chinese-made computers, smartphones, and tech components. Expect higher prices at checkout. Agricultural goods. American farmers could face serious losses as China cuts down on imports of US soybeans, pork, and dairy. Battery and green tech. China dominates the global battery industry. Tariffs on these goods could increase the cost of electric vehicles and solar panels in the US. So, who ultimately pays the price for these trade wars? Often, it's the consumer. While businesses may absorb some of the costs initially, they eventually pass them on to us through higher prices. Let me explain how. You walk into a store to buy a new smartphone. Normally, the phone costs $1,000, but suddenly, a 10% tariff is imposed on all imported electronics. Now, the store has to pay an extra $100 per phone just to bring it into the country. What happens next? They pass that cost on to you, the consumer. So that same phone that used to cost $1,000, now it's $1,100, all because of the tariff. As a matter of fact, according to the Peterson Institute for International Economics, Trump's 2025 tariffs could cost the typical U.S. household over $1,200 a year in higher prices for everything from cars to groceries. That's like paying for a new iPhone every year, just to cover Trump's trade taxes. And now, the big question: will this lead to another major global trade war? And if so, who stands to lose the most? Well, trade wars, history shows, have no winners. While tariffs may offer short-term political wins, they risk long-term economic chaos for workers, consumers, and global stability. So Trump may have framed tariffs as a tool for protecting American workers, but history has proven otherwise. That trade wars create economic chaos, hurt consumers, and strain diplomatic ties. And this is just the beginning. Trump has already hinted at new tariffs on the European Union, setting the stage for even more trade conflicts in the months ahead. And as the US, Canada, Mexico, and China dig in for a protracted battle, one thing is clear: the world is watching and bracing for impact. So, what do you think? Are tariffs a necessary defense or a self-inflicted wound? Let us know in the comments. If you found this breakdown insightful, subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. Until next time, stay informed and maybe stock up on avocados while you still can.